Next, we're going to get into our movement sequence. I'm going to walk you through the first of 3 rounds. We're beginning with supine rocking. So you're going to tuck yourself into a tight ball, round your spine, and use the strength of your core to hold that shape and create a smooth rocking action back and forth. Really try to feel this movement being driven by the strength in your core and maybe even starting to create some rotational movements by swiveling your hips. This is going to be a very basic transitional movement, so you might want to start playing around with different arrangements of your legs as you exit the rock. Here you can see me playing around with a figure 4 seated exit, and we're going to use this in our next movement. Next up, we've got a figure 4 sit, transition into a crouch position. So you're just using that figure 4 leg position seated on the ground and transitioning onto your feet and lower leg, this half kneeling or crouch position. I extend my leg and pull forward from my heel. And if you need some extra assistance, you can always use your hands on the ground to help you through the transition. Next, we're transitioning into the side bend sit position. The movement, hip switches. You're going to become very familiar with this over the course of the challenge. I want you to start slow and really create some stability and control over this transition. Begins by sweeping the back leg forward, switching your figure 4 legs, and then wrapping the straight leg back. When I'm in the side bent sit position, I'll take a fold forward. It gives me a nice stretch. And you can also use your hands in contact with the ground to give you a little bit more balance, a little bit more fluidity through the movement. And the last movement in today's sequence is going to be a bent sit. And we're just going to do this little side step or spinning action. So hopefully you're on a surface that has a little bit of slide and gives you that ability to spin around. This type of rotation is going to give you so many different options when it comes to creating more flow and creativity in your movements. That's going to bring us back to the beginning for the start of round 2. You've got 2 more rounds to explore these movements. Now, don't forget, the whole point of this is to get connected through your movements. So go ahead, experiment, try different things. Each round can look a little bit different. And that's going to finish our first day of practice. Now, every day is going to get a little bit more challenging, a little bit more complex. So, great jump off point today, good foundation, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 2. All right, good check-in, and now we're going to transition into our movement sequence. Again, I'll talk us through the first round. We're beginning with a rock up into a crawl. So we're going to use that same rocking action that we led off with yesterday. We're going to rock all the way up and transition onto our hands and feet, or hands and knees if it works better for you, and just going through a basic crawl pattern. Rock back, rock up, and smoothly transition into your crawl. Play around with stepping, crawling forward and backward, crawling at diagonals, changing orientation and rotating. Start to explore, have fun with it. Just a few things to remember with crawling. Try to keep your arms locked out, supporting your weight through the alignment rather than the muscles. And try to think about keeping your hips and head at the same level, maintaining some length in your spine. Keep an even weight distribution on your hands and feet. Next movement are crawl switches. So we're going from a face down crawl or a foot hand crawl into a inverted crawl, commonly called a crab crawl. So the action here is rotation. So you're going to balance on your opposite hand and foot, and you're going to rotate so your leg passes underneath your body. Make sure that you're pushing hard into the ground to maintain good shoulder stability all the way through the movement. You'll finish back in that inverted crawl, and now I just want you to do some shifting. In this case, I'm just going to make a circular action. My hips are going to circle around my 4 points of support. This is really going to test the shoulders and the strength and stability at some different angles. And you can also play around with repositioning your feet different ways. Back in from yesterday's practice, we've got our side bent sit hip switches. Still working on that good rhythm. Swing the leg forward, switch the figure 4, wrap the leg back. Use your hands as much as you need to control the movement or make it more dynamic, but also see if you can control it without using the hands. Those are our 4 movement patterns for the day, and now we're back to the rock up to the crawl. You've got 2 more rounds to explore, experiment, feel the movements, and get connected. And that's 3 rounds just about in the books. That's going to conclude our day 2 practice. Great job. If you're feeling it, go ahead and continue on. Otherwise, we'll see you back here tomorrow for day 3. We'll move into our first round of today's sequence, starting with tucked rocking. We've seen this variation in the past few days, and now we're just going to expand on it. Adding rotational rocking. We're starting to play around with little kicks or lower leg circles. Next in our sequence, we've got long rolls. Lay on your back with your arms and legs extended, and then you're gonna take one arm and reach across your body. Use the intention of that reach to pull you over onto your side, and then roll all the way over onto your stomach. Another variation is using the leg to reach across your body and pull you through the roll. So you can either use the upper body or the lower body to drive this rolling pattern. One last variation we'll show you is the strict long roll, where you lift your arms and legs off the ground and you drive the roll through the contractions of your core. Next variation is a crawl get up, working your way from a full prone position, pressing through the hands and feet to come up through a crawl, back up to your feet. We'll meet it standing and transition into squat shifting from a wide stance. Begin to lower your weight and shift side to side. Start with a smaller range of motion. Use your hands for extra support. Use your breathing to relax, and the range of motion will expand. The last movement in our sequence is the tripod get up. Wide stance, plant the hand, and the same side leg is going to sit through, and then you reverse that action to come back up to standing. Make sure to keep your support arms strong in the lockout position. Maintain good shoulder stability, good core strength through the transition. Now we're back to the top of our series. Follow along with me for 2 more rounds. All right, and that's just about it for our day 3 practice. Hopefully, you're noticing a little bit more fluidity and connection in your movements, even just a few days into the challenge. Keep moving if it suits you, otherwise, meet me back here tomorrow. Day 4 of the challenge resumes. Now that we had that quick check-in, let's get into our movement sequence for the day. We're starting with a single leg balance, transitioning right into a split squat. So you're going from this tall upright position, balancing, and then dropping down into a squat position. As you're balancing, I want you to think of pressing strong into the ground, creating lift out of the standing leg rather than just resting on top of it. We'll hold that split squat and transition into a squat walk. Here you're going to focus on maintaining a nice long spine and upright torso. If it helps you for stability and balance, you can use your hands to assist the walk. Next, you're going to transition to the knee, hand, hip roll. Start on hands and knees. Shift your weight until you roll onto the hip, across your butt, and back to hands and knees. We'll make a clean transition here into the inverted crawl. Looking to maintain good shoulder stability here, pressing strong into the ground and maintaining a long spine. Rounding out today's series is the foot hand crawl lunge. You're going to take a big step with your foot up towards your hands and then lengthen your spine. Enjoy that deep hip stretch. We're back at the top of the sequence. Follow along with me for 2 more rounds. All right, we're just about done with our day 4 practice. Great job. I encourage you to keep on moving throughout your day. See if you can bring some of these movements into your everyday life. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 5. All right, let's get into the first round of today's sequence. We're starting with side bent sit hip switches. Probably pretty familiar with this one by now. If so, you can start to increase the tempo and make this movement a little bit more dynamic. Make sure it stays fluid. Next, we've got a rolling crawl transition. From foot hand crawl position, one leg is going to reach up and step across the body to pull you over into inverted crawl. From the inverted crawl, you're going to take your arm and reach across until that pulls you through your roll back to the foot hand crawl position. Sit the hips back and get ready for the kneeling get up, which is up next. Tuck the toes, lean back and suck back through your hips to catch yourself in the deep knee bend position. If that's a little bit too much for you, you can always give yourself some extra support by using your hands. We'll transition next into the lateral shuffle crawl. It's a personal favorite of mine. So starting in that low knee bend position, reach your hands across your body, plant the hands and shift weight into the arms so you push through the ground. Shuffle step your feet past your hands. Last in our sequence, we've got the rolling get up. So we're drawing back on that tucked rock that we've done in previous practices. We're creating enough momentum to rock all the way up onto our feet and up to standing. You might rock up into a deep squat position or rock up into a half kneeling position. That brings us back to the top of the sequence. Follow along with me for 2 more rounds. All right, that's going to bring us to the end of our day 5 practice. Hopefully you're starting to see some improvements. You're starting to get more coordinated and fluid, and that's what happens when we practice consistently. It might seem awkward at first, but things do come together in time. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 6. Our sequence today is going to alternate hanging and crawling. So starting off with a strong active hang, keeping the ribs tucked down, the pelvis leveled forward. Transition into a foot-hand crawl, forward and backward. Transitioning back into our hang, strong, solid, stable shoulders. Breathing as relaxed as you can for a strong hang. And then transitioning into the inverted crawl, again forward and backward, and there'll be some other variations shown that you can throw in. Transitioning back into the active hang, and if your setup allows for it, maybe you can add in a little swing. Make sure to breathe, transition down to the ground softly and into the lateral shuffle crawl. One more cycle in today's series. We're back into the active hang, strong grip, stable shoulders, ribs tucked, pelvis level. Transition down and into a squat walk. Again, keeping the core brace strong, the shoulders held back, and maintaining good length along the spine. We're back to the top of the series. Follow along with me for 2 more rounds. All right, good work, good work. That's gonna bring our day 6 practice to a close. I'm really stoked that we could start playing around with hanging. It's an incredibly beneficial movement, but when you think about it, as adults, we don't often get many opportunities to hang and to strengthen our shoulders in this way. By bringing this type of movement into your life on a more regular basis, I'm confident that you're going to see a lot of positive changes. We'll do a little bit more hanging in tomorrow's practice as we conclude our challenge with day 7. I'll see you then. Let's get into our first round of today's practice. We're going to take our active hang from yesterday and add in a high knee tuck. Do your best to keep your legs hugging together, keep your arms straight, and use the strength of your arms pulling and your lower core to drive your hips up into the tuck. Then we're transitioning back into our rolling get-up that we saw in a previous practice. And then when we come up to standing, adding a little jump with a light landing. From here, we're going to transition into a sprawl, going from standing and lowering ourselves all the way to a low prone position. From the sprawl, we transition into the inverted crawl, any variation that's going to work for you. This series is going to finish with back rolls. So again, if we use that template from the tucked rock that we learned from day 1, we can generate more momentum, kick the legs overhead, and transition backwards through a roll. We're back to the top of our series. Follow along with me for 2 more rounds. All right, congratulations on completing the Get Connected Movement Challenge. I hope this has been an eye-opening experience for you. I've got one more video for you to check out where we'll talk about how you can keep all this momentum going and bring more movement goodness into your life. Hey, congratulations on completing the Get Connected Movement Challenge. This is definitely a different way to approach movement and fitness. I know it can feel a little awkward at first. What I've learned in my experience over the years is that consistency is the most important thing. And that's what we're really trying to hit home with this challenge. When you can practice and be consistent in that practice, good things happen. And soon, these movements become like second nature. The benefits to you are a rediscovery in how to move your body. Not only do your strength and cardio improve through this style of training, but also your balance, your coordination, and your mobility. It really all comes together to be a more complete way to approach fitness. There's greater balance and one that's just more sustainable and hopefully more fun. Thank you again for joining in on the challenge. If you're really curious to keep this momentum going and keep up with your movement training, be sure to check out my videos on YouTube. And also stay tuned for my upcoming e-courses where I'm really going to be getting deep into the philosophy and the practice of free movement. As always, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.